Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by Francis Family Foundation, Hall Family Foundation, the H&R Block Foundation, Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, John W. and FEE Spies Memorial Trust, Muriel McBrien Kaufman Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Maris Aylward.
We found the biggest stage around. It's Starlights for this edition of Arts Upload.
We'll show you how the Nutcracker is getting a 21st century reboot.
Plus a concertmaster's favorite fountain and an illustrator named Ignatoski.
Not to mention Lund and Fontaine. It's all ahead on the Upload. No two ways about it, the Nutcracker is a Kansas City holiday institution.
Every winter, the Kansas City Ballet does it to great success, so you might be surprised to learn that they're actually rebuilding it.
Artistic director Devin Carney is promising a Nutcracker this December with dramatic new sets, new costumes, and even new choreography.
It all comes with more than a little bit of risk, which he's well aware of.
Your first peek at what's in store starts in upstate New York.
Really good job on the trim.
I think we would need a little shine like here.
I have a very nice working relationship with Rachel. She knows what I like and what I'm expecting. They care what they do, and it shows on the floor.
I often liken what we do to being a musician in an orchestra. We're not jazz musicians. We're orchestra musicians who do what they're asked to do and do it as well as we can. Always looks
Here
nice.
too, right? You're gonna...
If you're looking for Act 2 of Kansas City's new Nutcracker, the scenic backdrops anyway, are about 1,000 miles from home right now. Cobalt Studios in White Lake, New York is teeming with all kinds of sugary sweet imagery, but big as the place may be, 3 more shops are also hard at work building this show.
We would not have been able to paint all of the soft goods for this show in the given time frame. We could do this act this year, the next act another year, but Kansas City they want it all at once. And so more than this shop has to be painting at this time.
But I want to see the spray. I want to see the spray.
As a result, Alon has been making the circuit between White Lake and Albany, Dayton and Chicago, tracking the progress of gigantic pieces, which began as small paintings in the same studio where he also creates children's books.
It's sometimes frustrating, sometimes disappointing, sometimes exciting, because somebody else is doing it, and somebody else is translating your own design, your own painting. And it's up to me to make sure we keep, even if it's a different artist, keep the look of the original drawing.
The costume designer, Holly Hines, suggested Alon, and I had, of course, thought of him immediately. That was my first thought. But I had heard he kind of stepped away from set design.
So here's where our story turns full circle. Back in 1985, Devin danced the title role for Boston Ballet's production of Romeo and Juliet in front of Alon's first major set designs. These many years later, they're collaborating for the first time. Turned loose to build a Nutcracker for the 21st century.
Just like a uniform needs shining up and getting some sparkle into it. And, you know, we've got a lot of technology nowadays that we didn't have 30 years ago. There's so much more that we can add to a show now.
Ours will be solid classic, sweets, balloons, sleighs, giant clocks and couches, giant trees, everything right in your face.
And there'll be puppets too, thanks to Paul Mesner and his crew, adding even more energy to the onstage mix. Of course, the real clock is ticking on all this. In less than 4 months, the sets, costumes, props, and dancers will converge here at the Kaufman Center to start putting it all together in time for the opening curtain on December 5th.
Every one of those line sets overhead has already been occupied and reserved for a particular set or drop for our new Nutcracker. And it's exciting, you know, but we have other shows that we're doing, and those are the ones we're doing right now.
In other words, about the same time last spring that Devin was guiding the troupe through Giselle,
And elbows roll and up.
he also managed
Yes.
to sneak in the
Yes.
first official
Yes.
rehearsal
Yes.
for the Nutcracker. Since then, it's been piecemeal at best, but just a few weeks back, he seized an opportunity to workshop a few ideas for Act Two's Waltz of the Flowers.
I'm working on it with students from our summer program, young aspiring dancers from all over the country. Here's the challenge. I'm working with students when I'm going to be presenting professional dancers. But the fact that I can have the opportunity to work with some kids for a couple of weeks and sort of get a sketch really helps me a lot. It's also helping me start to kind of open my eyes and start to see the production as a whole is coming at me. I want the company to feel confident and comfortable with what they're doing so that when we get to the theater, this is a show that's ready to go.
It's a fun show. It's about, you know, colors and movements and magic. I mean, it's supposed to bring people to these imaginary worlds.
I need this to be a little bigger, that's all. And this guy will be a little bigger.
It's a whirlwind. You get caught in, and it's out of your control. It's just a big machine in progress.
That machine has a $2 million price tag. So, to quote the artistic director, it had better be a bang-up show that lasts for years and years. After all, its predecessor became firmly entrenched as a Kansas City tradition.
It's the same tradition, it's just, you know, it's a different set of sets, costumes, and choreography, but the concept is still there. It's Nutcracker. The story isn't changing. The story is still there, and that's what the beauty of the Nutcracker is it's not going to change. You know, there's still Clara going on a fabulous adventure.
As the clock ticks down on the opening curtain, we'll be looking in on Devin and the ballet's process and progress here on Arts Upload.
You know, one of the recurring features on our show is called My Favorite Fountain.
We wanted to highlight the waterworks that dazzle people, move them, and inspire them.
This week, producer-videographer Dave Burkhart follows Noah Geller, Kansas City Symphony concertmaster, up a bunch of stairs to show you one of his.
This is my favorite fountain because it's located in Penn Valley Park, and this has been my backyard for the last 3 years. It's my absolute favorite place to come when I'm seeking some peace and serenity. I have no idea what I would call this fountain. It's located on the north wall of the Liberty Memorial, and I guess it's sort of, if you're going to the World War I Museum, you're not going to see this fountain. Really what this place represents to me is a sort of escape from the everyday, and just I would come up here with my dog, try to tackle this hill, and every time I'd pass by this fountain, and it's just a beautiful sort of ambiance in a remarkable place. As long as music has been in existence, I think music and nature go together, and music and human suffering go together, and pretty much anything that human beings experience can be paired with music. So in that sense, music is very much linked to this area. The Bach Chaconne is really one of Bach's most profound works, and I think if I were to play something for the bereaved, or if I were to play something in remembrance of people who perished in war, I think I would choose this piece. I've been living for the last 3 years in the Crossroads, and it's kind of a concrete jungle there. And so really this was my backyard for the last 3 years. And it just really represents sort of a sense of peace and serenity for me in Kansas City. There's always people here, I think, enjoying the surroundings. A lot of times there'll be people hanging out around the fountain, trying to see how far in they can get without breaking the law. Another great thing about this fountain is that you have a spectacular view of downtown Kansas City, and of course, probably the crown jewel of that skyline, I might be a little bit biased, of course, is the Kauffman Center.
Rachel Ignatowski's resume, not easy to say, tells us she grew up in New Jersey on a healthy diet of cartoons and pudding.
Equally important might be the science and the history she absorbed along the way.
Rachel graduated with a degree in graphic design from the Tyler School of Arts and landed a job at Hallmark.
Now, as a freelance illustrator, she's getting noticed by everyone, from BuzzFeed to the Scientific American.
And by producer Ashley Holcroft, who has more on this immensely talented young woman.
There we go, that's good. There's Thor. See, I got to say pretty boy lips for smooching. They let me write whatever I want. It's a really, I love working with clients who trust me because then I get a lot of really cool work done.
Pretty boy lips for smoochin', bullets a daytime to evening look. Arc reactor may cause heartburn. Just some of the wonderfully creative fodder Rachel Ignatowski conjures in her creative Casey lair for one of her many high-profile clients. This time, it's for Fandango.com.
For the Avengers series, they kind of called me up and they were like, we would like to do something with the Avengers. We need it really quick. What do you want to do? So I said, oh, like, why don't we just do an anatomy of them? And they say, okay, thank you. And then I say, yay, and then they feature me. And that's it.
Which begs the question, how does one get on the mighty Fandango's carte blanche contact list? Well, there are a few things you need to know about Rachel. First off, she's been at this a while.
I knew I wanted to go into art when I was really young. So around 16 is when I got really serious about it, and I started going to pre-college classes and getting my portfolio together. And I always had an interest in science and biology. In fact, if I didn't go into art, I was going to maybe become a doctor or something like that. But I liked art much better.
She's also passionate about gender equality, which made for a uniquely successful formula. That proved to be her golden ticket.
How my Women in Science series started was I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and we were sitting around and we're discussing, the gender gap that still exists. Science, mathematics, technology, engineering, those are all still very much boys' games. And so I started, researching it a little more, and I thought, I could, if I just draw these women in this sort of new whimsical way that no one's really doing right now, maybe that'll spark some people's interest in it. And also just to celebrate them so that people who have been inspired by these women can have them up on their wall and be like, oh, thank you, Barbara McClintock. You really, really inspired me. That's why I'm in genetics.
The series includes popular favorites like Dr. Jane Goodall, the first woman in space, Valentina Tereshkova, to names and fascinating stories that have been buried in the history books, like the mother of the first complex computer code COBOL, Grace Hopper, or pioneers of entire fields of science.
Mary Anning, who was pretty much the first paleontologist of her time, she found the first real full dinosaur skeleton. She wasn't allowed to be published because she was a woman. They weren't allowed to, and she was a poor woman at that. But she fought her way to get that information out there by being brave and becoming associated with noble gentlemen who then published that work for her and basically helped start that field.
From paleontology to the first person to ever win a Nobel Prize in 2 different fields of science.
Just Marie Curie, who's probably one of the best known ones. I mean, they didn't even want to give her her second Nobel Prize, and she also got very discredited because she was a woman and a foreigner to France. And you know what she did? She kept working, and then she drove a frickin' X-ray truck and like helped soldiers with broken bones. And it's amazing. All the glass ceilings they had to break, all the rules they had to break to get to where they are and to accomplish what they accomplish. I think the best way to fight gender bias is through examples of strong females and to normalize women in positions of power.
So when International Women's Day rolled around, Instagram took notice and featured her series.
It was really taken off online. I have gone from having like 1,500 followers to having over 40,000 followers. That has really motivated me to turn this into a book.
A book featuring 50 of these amazing women will be published in fall of 2016. But from that event, something even better happened.
I would come home from work and I felt like I was working another 40-hour week outside of work. And it started off as a little trickle where like the first thing that happened was people started buying stuff from my shop, and then all of a sudden I'm making rent, and then I'm making the same amount that I'm making at my day job. And then after that, all these different blogs and newspapers started picking me up, and I didn't expect it to happen so quickly, but I always knew that something would happen if I worked hard.
So she quit her job at Hallmark and set off on her own. Now she happily spends her days researching and drawing.
I'm just so happy that I make a living doing this kind of work where I learn every day, and it's like I feel like I retired. It's nuts. Like I feel like I'm like Coca Cabana, except sitting in my room and researching and drawing.
So far, she's worked with dozens of clients, from independent films to childhood cancer research organizations, breaking down complex science into understandable infographics, similar to what she does in her anatomy series, which includes what happens to the brain in love, the novel workings of the heart, cell structure, and many more. But there was one in particular that struck a special chord.
A while ago, I got this little piece of fan mail from this father who bought my respiratory system print, and his daughter has CF. And so she's 4 years old and she has to use a respirator at night. So he emailed me saying, thank you so much, because everything else that's out there kind of looks scary. And yours is all cuddly and happy, and she understands. It really calmed her, and he was happy that he could have that moment with his daughter. And it's one of those things where you're like, wow, illustration is a tool to help connect people with information that seems scary and dense and unapproachable. I think there's a way to start conversations by putting smiley faces on some cells. It's been amazing. It's been like, we'll see what happens next.
This stage has been a part of Kansas City entertainment since 1950. Its first production, Thrills of a Century, was ready just in time to commemorate the city's 100th birthday.
Back then, outdoor theaters mounting their own productions was not so uncommon. Now it's down to just a pair, Starlight and the Muni in St. Louis.
This set is from Cinderella, which comes here from a touring company. But work is underway right now for Mary Poppins, which is a Starlight production.
Of course, concert season will go on into the fall. These almost 8,000 seats are a perfect place to see some of your favorite artists in the great outdoors with only the occasional train or animal sound.
Our final story on this edition of Arts Upload mixes theater and history as well.
We're headed to Wisconsin, where actors learn their craft in the estate where Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontaine once called home.
It's a gathering of masters, both master teachers and master artists. And in this atmosphere at 10 Chimneys, it's joyful because we are also honoring the gifts that the Lunts gave to the theatrical community and American theater history.
10 Chimneys is the estate of Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontaine, who were the premier stage actors from the 20s to the 60s. We're here to help further American theater, and that's in many ways through education, through training, through development, and through legacy building. The Lynn Fontaine Fellowship Program is the preeminent fellowship program for actors to have a minimum of 20 years of acting experience. We find that at that stage, that's when the rejuvenation may be necessary. At 20 years, you're mentoring others just naturally, But this is where the mentors come to be mentored. We have 10 fellows from all around the country, all among the best in their craft. They are energized, committed, passionate, lovers of the theater. You can see why they are the best at what they do.
The Lunt-Fontanne estate is a treasure. It's a jewel, and Wisconsin has it. And to be able to access this resource and not only have Milwaukee Theater honored, but the Lunt-Fontanne estate and their legacy, to have that honored as well is just really, really exciting. This is such an amazing group of people who have spent their lives continually showing up, continually pushing the boundaries, continually redefining excellence and vulnerability, which is really a fascinating quality in all of these people that, as professional and as trained and disciplined as they all are, they're all enormously vulnerable. And that's an exciting thing for both other performers and for audiences.
The masterclass teacher really has to be someone that is respected by the acting community. So you couldn't have someone that may have had a great role, but only have a few years of experience. So typically the masterclass teacher has been in the business for 30+ years. But in addition to that, have a commitment to American theater.
I'm here for a week to run a master class with 10 wonderful actors from around the country. And we're here to sort of rejuvenate ourselves and rediscover why we're doing what we're doing. These are people who have, like myself, reached a point in life where they are, they've done a lot and accomplished a lot, and we are all sort of collectively looking back and looking forward at our careers and at our work. My job in the class is, I think, to just facilitate that and use whatever experience I have to shed any insights I may have on their careers and their work. My deal this week was, I thought, since we're at 10 Chimneys, that we should work on things that in some way are connected to the Lunts. So I thought, what if we used that guest list as our template and said, let's look at anything written by or performed in people who were friends of the Lunts and came to 10 Chimneys. So I call it Chimney Pieces. You could also call it 6 Degrees of 10 Chimneys. So part of this week is getting to know each other and getting to see what parts fit well and what scenes work best. And I think the general idea will be we'll use the first part of the week to just play and explore as much as we can. And then as it gets towards the end of the week, we'll start narrowing down our choices to scenes that we can maybe dig deeper into for the rest of the time here.
David is a very warm person, he's just very natural in terms of his connections with people. So he has offered them not only the wisdom that he has, but he has also provided them with some good guidance and support and sharing of experiences.
Probably the formative years of my acting were spent in regional theater, at the Guthrie, at the Goodman, at the Long Wharf, places like that. And then I've gone away and done television. And probably most importantly, I came back. And ever since Frasier ended, I've been doing theater, because that was my first love, and that is what I find most fulfilling. So that's a kind of a broad range of experience that may give me some perspectives on things that are useful. But above all, I think it's that belief in love of and commitment to the theater.
One of the things that's happened in the conversations that the fellows have been having is that we've all discovered that no matter what checklist there is about whether you're good at this or whether you should pursue this, those of us who are here just keep showing up. That we refuse to take no for an answer, that we refuse to let someone else define beauty or talent or success, that we just keep saying, I'm gonna keep showing up. And that's, right now, what I'm taking away from this is keep showing up, keep bringing your best game, keep bringing your best generosity, keep bringing your best intelligence, and good things will happen.
The essence of a program like this is being willing at a later stage in your career and in your life to take a chance, to open yourself up to possibilities. So that at a time in life where it's very easy to start shutting down and start narrowing your choices and feeling like you have to protect, be able to embrace uncertainty, because this place is full of those things and full of magic. I hope that they leave here inspired. I hope that they have made discoveries about themselves or about their technique. And I've hoped they've been exposed to a world of the theater that they maybe never knew or had lost touch with, because some of these plays don't get done so much anymore. I hope they leave full of lunts.
You know, just about everyone from Jerry Lewis to Phyllis Diller, Davy Jones to Harry Truman, true story, put in some stage time out here at Starlight.
But our time is up.
Until next fall, that is, when Arts Upload will return with more stories about music and theater,
dance and visual arts. Till then, I'm Mary Saylor.
And I'm Randy Mason. See you then.
7, 8. Ya da 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 1 and a 2, da ba da da 3 and a 4, 5, 6 and a 7. Okay, got it. Balance, say under and D. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4, 4, and 1, 2.
Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by Francis Family Foundation, Hall Family Foundation, the H&R Block Foundation, Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, John W. and FEE Spies Memorial Trust, Muriel McBrien Kaufman Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.